Hey friends, tonight are you ready to plunge into a world of chaos, dust, and untold historical mysteries? You step into a medieval tavern, the town's roaring heart, where knights, peasants, and poets drink side by side. Purses grow light in equal measure as laughter crackles dangerously and the air sours with ale. It's not just a place to drink. It's where secrets whisper, rumors spread, and riddles from the past await your discovery. Will you uncover the enigma of Queen Nefertiti, who vanished like smoke, or the submerged Sphinx beneath the Nile, defying all you thought you knew? Perhaps the dragon's backbone terraces, where time seems to pause? Before you let go, hit, like, and subscribe, only if you truly crave these journeys. And drop a comment now. Where are you watching from, and what time is it on your end? I'm dying to know who's adventuring with us. Now dim the lights, turn on a gentle fan for that soft hum, and let's embark on tonight's voyage. You trudge along a muddy path, each step a negotiation between your patience and the stickiness of the clay. Darkness cloaks the sky, not a single street lamp in sight. Only a sliver of moon hanging like a silver thread, just enough for you to see you're headed straight into another puddle. The scent of damp earth mingles with horse manure, and the lingering smoke of half-burned wood, as if the whole town were simmering in a curious, centuries-old stew. Your left shoe squelches splat with every suction of mud. The right one has given up all pretense and simply slides along by momentum. And just when you think things couldn't get any worse, a horse-drawn cart materializes from nowhere, its wheel grazing the top of your boot, laden with turnips as big as forearms. One tumbles off, nearly sending you sprawling. You stare at the turnip. It stares back. You both agree to pretend you've never met. Hungry, exhausted. You suspect your spleen is pounding on your ribs, begging for leave. You need a place to rest, just one spot, in a strange town without Google Maps, without street signs, and of course, without a single Starbucks peeking from a corner. What do? You resort to classic survival instinct. You listen. From afar comes a cacophony, laughter, deep and rumbling as though someone had been drinking for a month straight. A rambling song about a lost pig, a local ballad no doubt, the clatter of wooden mugs bumping together, as disjointed as an orchestra that forgot its rhythm. You follow the sounds like a mouse to a flute, hoping the end of that trail won't be a dungeon, but a roof over your head and at least one chair. At last, you spot it. A leaning wooden shack, as though a single sneeze would bring it down. On the warped door hangs a crudely carved sign, tilted, ambiguous. From one angle, a dog. From another, a dented barrel. And when your vision blurs from hunger, it looks exactly like hope. You push the door. It groans creak, like the weary sigh of history. Inside, smoke and warm amber light fill the room, resembling a medieval painting someone once wiped with a napkin. A man in the corner plucks a lute, sporting what must have won Western Whiskers champion. Behind the bar, a woman pours ale from a massive wooden keg, her other hand waving a rag to shoo flies, as though practicing swordplay. You step in, and feel as though you've passed through an ancient rite. Every eye fixes on you for a fleeting moment, then returns to card games, ale, and tales of that time the sky dropped a duck. You claim a seat by the hearth, where a calico cat snoozes atop an old boot, likely abandoned since last winter. The innkeeper approaches, not asking your name, only, "Empty stomach or parched throat?" You manage a wan smile and nod both. He nods back and retreats, leaving you with the fire's glow, the off-tempo lute, and the scent of slightly singed turnip stew. Then, as if fate's reward, your meal arrives, a slab of bread as firm as legend promises, a bowl of soup with unidentifiable ingredients, and a glass of cloudy cider like a December sky. Yet, in that moment, it is a royal feast. The man beside you begins. He was once this town's mayor for 3 days, before absconding with the tax office's horse. Across, a woman insists she's seen a ghost in the outhouse behind the tavern. "It scares no one," she says. "It only asks for toilet paper." Someone behind erupts in laughter, toppling off a chair, bringing down a domino board and a mug of ale in their wake. You lean back, your hunger soothed, your chill retreating, your mind lulled by stories at once absurd and heartwarming. This wasn't your intended destination, yet it's exactly where you needed to be. The hearth crackles, the cat purrs softly, the cider begins to mellow your thoughts. Outside, the wind still howls through the cracks, but inside, time bows out. No clocks, no phones, no email alerts, only storytelling, a stumbling lute, and a hint of cinnamon from your drink. As your eyelids grow heavy, you catch the start of another tale, of a knight astride a lost horse who wandered into that very outhouse and found the innkeeper's daughter's heart. A strange story, yet somehow perfectly fitting. You smile in the half-light. Tomorrow you may depart and resume your journey. But tonight, in this nameless oddity of a tavern, among wandering souls and pointless tales, you found something more precious than a hot meal. You found a pause, and sleep arrives like an old friend, gentle, unannounced. You push open the heavy door. The hinge lets out a long, drawn-out creak, as if awakening from an 8th-century slumber. That sound, though weary, carries an inexplicable warmth, like a welcome song reserved solely for the weary, the hungry, and the curious. The moment the door swings wide, a wave of heat rushes out. It sweeps away the chill clinging to your coat collar and fingertips. The air inside hangs thick, like a bubbling stew. You smell dense charcoal smoke, the stale tang of spilled ale that decided to settle on the floor, and something elusive, half-burnt meat, or perhaps someone's shoe left to roast by mistake. You step inside and immediately bow your head. The ceiling sits so low that anyone taller than an armchair risks bumping their forehead on a wooden beam. The beams stretch across the ceiling like outstretched arms. They remind you, this is a place for the humble or the short. The floor isn't stone nor wood. It's genuine earth, rough, stained. A thin layer of straw covers it, a feeble attempt to hide unnameable stains, spilled beer, duck fat, the footprints of someone fleeing an unpaid tab. With every step, the straw crackles beneath your feet. It feels as though you're walking through this tavern's secret diary. The room teems with life. Red-faced farmers flushed by ale, by wind, or by a full day's arguing at market. No one's quite sure. Knights in silver armor that, on closer look, is crooked, missing clasps, and one fellow using his helmet as a soup bowl. Every corner hosts its own uproarious tale. In one nook, a heated debate rages over a missing chicken. One man insists he saw it fly onto the roof. Another swears it vanished along with his grandfather's hat. No proof emerges, and strangely, nobody really cares. Near the hearth, where flickering flames dance across wooden mugs and the weary faces of patrons, a drunkard clutches his ale as if it were a family heirloom. His eyes droop, his head nods, yet his grip remains unwavering, a bond of trust unbroken by anything. You claim a spot at the far end of the bar. There's an old rocking chair, 3 legs solid, the 4th replaced by a wooden fork. You sit. The chair groans, as though debating whether to bear another weight. Then it settles, accepting its fate. The innkeeper appears like a courteous specter, hair wild as a raven's nest and an apron once white, now bearing the hue of time. He doesn't ask where you're from, your name, or who you might be fleeing. He merely squints and asks, "Rest your feet or tell your tale." You smile. Sit and listen. He nods, vanishing behind the bar as though you'd given him the wisest answer he's ever heard. Moments later, he returns with a bowl of stew, steaming liquid dotted with greenish flecks of something like vegetables, and a spoon warped by age, curved like a banana peel. Alongside it, a slice of bread harder than your patience. Yet oddly, every bite tastes divine. Or perhaps you're simply too hungry to know otherwise. From a distant corner, music drifts. Someone plays a flute, though the instrument seems reluctant. Each high note resembles a scream, each low note a sigh. Still, no one minds. A few patrons even sway to the tune, as if it retells the story of their youth. Suddenly, the man beside you turns. His mustache curls upward like a fledgling bird preparing for its first flight, and his eyes gleam as if he's just recalled a secret. "You know," he says, "this town once had a countess who only ate soup on Wednesdays. On other days, she claimed to be a kale leaf." You nod. Naturally. Who hasn't heard that one? The tale flows on. No one tells it from beginning to end, yet everyone adds a line, a detail, a sound. You can't discern truth from ale-fueled fiction, and you no longer care. Leaning back, your hand wrapped around a wooden mug half empty, you realize you're suspended in a moment without name, motive, or time constraints. Just a night, in a small tavern, in a town perhaps too obscure for any map. The hearth still crackles, stories still unfold. Outside, wind whistles through cracks, whispering, "Don't leave so soon. Stay a while longer." You find a corner bench against the gray stone wall. The oil lamp's glow hesitates, as though unsure whether to shine or not. The bench tilts slightly to one side, as if someone plopped down too hard back in 1327 and nobody's bothered to straighten it since. The seat feels damp, perhaps from spilled ale, rainwater, or some uncanny pact between tavern and weather, but at least it's yours. A small patch of land amid nameless chaos, free of rules. You sit. The wood beneath the cushion groans, as though recounting a long day of bearing every kind of patron, from the overindulged to the ones who can't tell a table from a chamber pot. Yet it supports you loyally, and in that moment, you feel accepted. Around you rises an unconducted symphony. Wooden mugs clink sharply. Laughter bursts like firecrackers. Shouts and songs weave through it all, none following any melody ever recorded by humankind. A middle-aged man, beet red as a turnip, belts out his passion for an unrequited love with a sheep named Margot. He waves his arms like a maestro despite his sole audience being a fly skimming the rim of his ale. There is no menu, no clean-vested server with a toothpaste ad smile. Here, if you want food, you must signal, nod, gesture, or simply bellow, "I am hungry," and trust someone hears. Everything in this tavern runs not on rules, but on the pulse of an ancient, disorderly heart. Beneath your table, a docked-tailed dog gnaws a bone twice its head size. It glances at you as if appraising whether you'll compete for a bite. Then, deeming you too weary, it returns to its feast. There's something in the dog's eyes, that calm of one who's seen it all. Perhaps it's the tavern's long-standing creditor, or worse, the ghost of a dispossessed noble. At the opposite table, an auntie, no one's sure how ancient, slams her mug to the tabletop. Ale splashes, speckling the hair of the man beside her. He merely sniffs, wipes his face on his sleeve, then resumes arguing with, yes, a fork, over why bread today lacks the chew of yesteryear. You lean back, eyes drifting across the scene like one observing a bizarre dream spun by an overindulged medieval scholar. On the ceiling hangs a cat's skeleton, either a warning or avant-garde decor no one dares remove. Beside the hearth, logs crackle, and a drunkard converses with them, greeting each chunk as an old friend. No one sits still here. Each patron is a moving fragment in this tavern's grand mosaic. Someone sings, someone weeps, someone scratches their back with a knife handle, someone simply sits, listening to the breath of centuries. Here, conversation knows no petty bounds. No one whispers, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do?" For they know, if you're here, you're already part of the whirlwind. You glance about, a child stealthily slurping ale from his father's mug through a reed, survival craft passed down through generations. A man insisting he once advised the Empress, though his attire consists of 2 ragged cloth scraps and a sock tied atop his head. In the dim light, you realize this place isn't merely a tavern. It's a living recording of stories history forgot. Nameless souls, outcasts, drunken heroes, and aunties whose glare could boil ale. Each person, each laugh, each drop of ale spilled upon the floor serves as reminder. Life needn't be perfect to be memorable. And you, the unnamed traveler, sit here on the tilted bench, clutching your wooden mug brimming with fragments of history, immersed in the chorus of laughter, song, and silent sobs. No quest is fulfilled tonight, no life altered forever. There is only presence. You exhale deeply, your eyelids grow heavy. The ballad of Margot the sheep continues, growing weaker, more off-key, and it is the sweetest lullaby you have ever heard. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax, or grab a glass of water and settle in, because the story ahead still holds surprises. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see people join us from around the world. Comment 1 if you're enjoying the tale, so we can keep bringing you more great stories. Right at the heart of that chaos, amid raucous laughter, off-key singing, and mugs of ale crashing like cannon fire, stands the tavern keeper. No throne, no crown, yet their authority goes unquestioned. In a place where law lies days' ride away, the tavern keeper is king, queen, bartender, referee, and sometimes judge. You might see an old man with a silver beard so thick that a strong gust could hide a squirrel within it without him noticing. Arms like oak trunks, veins map-like across his forearms, and whenever he lifts a keg of ale, it looks as delicate as a teacup. He speaks little. One glare suffices. His gaze alone can freeze two drunkards mid-punch, forgetting who started cursing whom. Or perhaps it's a landlady, her hair piled high like a watchtower, her eyes sharp as blades honed by every rumor in town. She pours ale while talking to 3 patrons at once, then slams a ladle on the bar, silencing all 3 instantly. And strangely, she uses no ledger, no pen. Yet she recalls who drank how many mugs, who's owed what since last winter, and who's forgotten to pay 3 times running. That tavern keeper needs no raised voice to command respect. They exist as part of the tavern itself, like a supporting beam, like the lingering scent of smoke that never fades. They are not merely pourers of ale. They are the soul of this place. You sit near them, and that means you choose safety. Close to the keeper, you needn't fear old bread hurled at your head or being dragged into a random wrestling match over whether wheat beer tastes better than oat. Near them, the storm abates. One frown from them is an invisible shield. But that same gaze, if you dare, oh heaven help you, if you dare, default on your tab, will become a blade piercing your soul. No need to call for help, no need to shout. The keeper need only glance at you, tilt their head, lift a dirty mug, and gently wipe its inside with a hardly cleaner rag. Then you will understand. Worse is coming. They know every secret, not by snooping, but simply by being there, always there, hearing slips uttered in drunken haze, witnessing glances exchanged when they shouldn't be. They know who tells their wife they're out hunting, while in truth, they're in here drinking with the red-haired barmaid. They know who evades taxes by stashing coins in a flute. And they know you, just arrived, dust-caked cloak, yet the mark of the necklace you tried to hide still presses against your neck. A traveler once recounted how the keeper looked a distant merchant dead in the eye and said something that silenced the entire tavern. Your real name is not Cedric." And the fellow, after 3 seconds of stunned silence, bolted from the tavern, leaving behind both his purses and his box of fish-shaped cakes. You regard the keeper, and you understand this is no mere ale seller. This is the gatekeeper between the outside world and the world of this tavern. They uphold order, preserve tradition, and sometimes safeguard the secrets of an entire generation. You nod your greeting. They reply without a word, just a single raised eyebrow, then continue pouring ale for another patron, one who appears to be concealing a map up his sleeve. You're not sure whether that map leads to treasure or trouble. But one thing you know, the keeper has seen it. In that scene, the hearth's glow reflects off the ale, forming a warm streak of light, like a flickering memory. Outside, the wind still howls through the cracks. But inside, everything revolves around them. The tavern keeper. They need do nothing more. Their very presence is a balancing magic. No one too chaotic, no one too still. All is kept at exactly the right level of madness to remain delightful and the right level of order to endure. A mercenary seated nearby leans in and whispers, "Want to survive? Don't hold her gaze for more than 3 seconds, and never order a fourth ale without coin in hand." You smile softly, place a coin on the bar, and push it toward the keeper. They glance down, nod, and pour you another mug. No one utters another word, yet you know you've been acknowledged. You decide to order a beer. Of course, you know better than to expect much. This is no high-tech cooler or gleaming crystal glass. You receive an old wooden mug, its walls thick and damp, as if it has just risen from a moldy battlefield. The ale is not poured in with a rush, but drips slowly, as though the keg itself hesitates to share its soul with you. Then it appears, a murky liquid, deep golden, like faded sunlight, flecked with a few grains of unmilled barley and perhaps a lone straw, drifting in circles as if searching for home. You lift the mug and take a sip. The beer isn't cold. It's warm. Not the warmth of an embrace, but a half-hearted heat, like hand wash left on a hearth. Yet strangely, it tastes not bad. A hint of malt, a tang of sour yeast, something like sun-soaked oak. You're not certain, nor do you wish to be. Here, beer isn't meant for analysis, but for survival. Alongside beer, the tavern offers mead. It comes in an earthenware jug, the rim thick with crystallized sugar, and sometimes stamped with the last drinker's lip mark. The mead glows amber, sweet, as if someone dissolved a mountain of candy in a pot and added just enough yeast to make it plausible as a drink. You take a swallow and instantly feel your mind lighten. Not a modern buzz, but the kind of, "I just saw a blue dragon fly by and it greeted me in Old French." You blink. Perhaps it's a chemical reaction. Perhaps it's the booze. Or perhaps, here, nothing is impossible. If mead is a honeyed dream, then the cider here is a gustatory nightmare. Sharp, as if the apple were pressed in a rage. It's served in cracked clay cups, some reinforced with leather straps, as though a very medieval attempt at repair. You taste it and immediately sense every crease in your being. Yet you drink again. Why? Because it makes you feel alive. Alive in the sense of, I know I'm living, and even, I know I can survive anything. Water? Oh no. Do not. Water here is not for newcomers. It's drawn from a wooden barrel tucked into a shadowy corner, beyond the hearth's light, where flies seem to hold legal rights. The water is cloudy, oddly scented, and carries a sweetness you don't dare ask the source of. Unless you're curious about medieval digestion, it's best to stay away. Hungry? There is stew. They call it simply the stew. A thick bowl of grayish-brown broth dotted with unidentifiable bits. You may recognize carrot slices, a few beans, some wheat grains, and some meat that watches you with an anonymous gaze. The stew simmers in a cast-iron pot that seems never to have been washed since King Edward wore his crown. Its aroma isn't bad, rich, smoky, with a hint of herbs plucked from a forest edge. Miraculously, when it meets your tongue, it dissolves like sky after rain. Not delicious by modern standards, but hearty enough to make you forget wet boots and a long journey, and somehow comforting, as if each spoonful is an ancestor's nod. Yes, you're doing fine. If you're lucky, you'll receive a loaf of bread. Loaf might be generous. It's more like a round stone baked in the embers. Bite into it, and your jaw vibrates. But past the hard crust lies a stubborn crumb, scented with toasted malt and hearth ash. You chew slowly, savoring each grain of flour, and in that moment, strangely, you feel life. Not luxurious living, but real living. Basic, primal, sincere. All food and drink here carry the flavor of time, not the time measured by clocks, but by cracks in mugs, burns on pots, and the rumble in your stomach afterward. You settle back, sipping the warm beer, holding a chunk of bread as hard as rock, and hear someone singing a ballad about the love between a man and a talking cabbage. Hearth smoke drifts across the low ceiling. Laughter, whispers, and the thump of fists on tables form the night's own rhythm. You cannot recall how you arrived here, but now, sitting amid these strange dishes and drinks that might make you swear you saw a bat wearing a hat, you understand? This is part of the journey. The tavern, even with its cold stone walls and tilting wooden roof, is far more than a place to eat, drink, and get drunk. It is a stage. No spotlights, no props. Yet each table hosts its own play, each patron its own hero. And tonight, you sit amid the town's most vibrant performance. By the hearth, a farmer with cheeks as rosy as September apples sways to his own rhythm. He brandishes his mug and tells a tale he insists is entirely serious, that his cow can talk. Not only talk, but recite poetry. He swears that just this morning, when he brought it hay, the cow tilted its head and said, "This is too old. I prefer sprouts." The room erupts in laughter. Someone shouts back, "Does it read books too?" The farmer merely shrugs, deadpan. Its literacy needs work, but it loves being read to. Nearby, an old soldier in a threadbare coat nurses a cup of cider, his gaze distant, as if reliving an entire lifetime. When someone asks whom he once fought, he gently sets down his cup, taps the table thrice, and declares, "I once faced a three-headed dragon alone on the northern lake's shore." Alone. Polite applause follows. Another asks, "And did you win?" The veteran narrows his eyes, replies, "If I'm still here, isn't that proof enough?" The crowd roars, yet no one doubts or mocks. Here, every story, no matter how outrageous, is met with curiosity and delight. In one corner, between two cracked wooden pillars, a bard perches on a low stool, passionately strumming his instrument. His lute boasts only 3 strings, each tuned on a whim, and his voice rattles like a boiling kettle, yet holds an irresistible quality. He sings of love between a cook-maiden and a knight who abandoned his sword to learn the baker's craft. No one knows if it's true, but all nod along as though hearing an epic. Around you, dice clatter, clack, clack echoes, followed by cheers or groans. A winning throw sends coins skittering from one hand to the next. Some rejoice, others quietly clutch their gains. Yet no one holds a grudge. Losing a round means buying another mug, then laughing all over again. Near the door, 2 burly men grapple arm wrestling, faces flushed, veins bulging like cords. The tavern falls silent, as though the universe's fate hinges on the victor. After 5 tense seconds, a muffled "ugh" marks a defeat, and instead of fury, the loser laughs, pats his opponent's shoulder, and orders 2 more beers. Here, strength is for sharing, not proving. You sit quietly, observing. All you witness, boisterous conversations, off-key songs, duels of muscle and luck, seem disparate, yet somehow interwoven. For each thread contributes to one tapestry, the tale of a community. Here, no one asks whether you're noble or peasant, how much land you own, or which city you hail from. They care not for your leather boots or tattered shoes. If you have a story and a mug in hand, you belong. Perhaps that is the tavern's greatest magic. In a world full of divisions and hierarchies, this place tears down every wall. You'll see a knight sharing jokes with a busker, an old crone breaking bread with a mercenary. Here, people are measured not by rank, but by presence, by how they tell a story, share a drink, or simply listen to a terrible song and still applaud. And amid all that clamor, awkward melodies, booming laughter, clinking mugs, you realize something. Stories, whether fact or fiction, long or brief, exist not merely to entertain. They are bridges. They turn strangers into friends, give the lonely a neighboring seat, warm a winter's night, and remind us, across any era, that we belong to something greater. You raise your mug, take another sip of the warm beer. Before you, life unfolds, not hurried, not perfect, but utterly complete. You have just left that muddy, boisterous tavern, where laughter rolled like thunder and dice rattled on rotting wood, and the world around you blurs, as if the smoky haze has dissolved. When you open your eyes, You no longer hear the bard's wavering song or clinking mugs. Instead, a hot wind sweeps over golden dunes. The sun scorches the sky like a giant coin molten on a forge. You stand in the Egyptian desert. No map, no signpost reading Nefertiti's palace, 500 miles to the right. Only weathered pillars trembling in the heat, scented with aromatic resin, hot sand, and power. Before you rises a colossal statue, delicate features, a long, proud neck, a broad brow, and deep-lined eyes rimmed in kohl that draw you in. Not a god, nor a spirit, but she, Nefertiti. Her ancient Egyptian name means, "The Beautiful One has come," and you understand that, at the mere glance of that face, the name is no flattery. It is a truth as silent and enduring as the pyramids themselves. But who was Nefertiti? Ah, that is a question no one can answer with certainty. Like the faded murals on rock walls, clear strokes, lingering color, yet the story as hazy as a distant camel's silhouette on the horizon. Some scholars posit she was the daughter of a high official. Others believe she was a foreign princess, sent to Egypt to seal an alliance between two thrones. An exquisite gift, endowed with power. Wherever she came from, Nefertiti was no woman content to stay behind curtains. She was no quiet seamstress stitching veils while the king pondered state affairs. No, she was a storm, cloaked in silk and kohl. From the dawn of her reign, she was not merely queen, she was ally, co-regent. In the reliefs, she stands shoulder to shoulder with Akhenaten, the eccentric pharaoh who upended Egypt's entire pantheon to worship a single sun god. Imagine, a society steeped in polytheism, hundreds of temples, priests, and rituals. Then a royal couple proclaims, "We will worship only the sun, the rest. Thank you, but no." And who stands unwavering by the pharaoh in such madness? Nefertiti. Not by decree, but by choice. Silent, steadfast, powerful without raising her voice. Picture her entering the temple, tall, her long neck arching as though challenging time itself, her kohl-rimmed eyes meeting the old priest's gaze as he fumbles to defend why 200 gods still matter. She utters no word, just one look, and history shifts. Nefertiti is not the sort of legend remembered for war or bloodshed. She did not wield a sword nor command chariots. She embodied something far more dangerous: change. And in any civilization, change is either worshipped or feared. That is why, after her brilliant years, she vanished from the annals like a dream dissolving at sunrise. No record when she died, where she was buried, or even whether she truly disappeared or simply assumed another name, another role. Some theories hold she became pharaoh under a different title. Others believe she was deposed by those who once bowed before her. The only certainty, no one can forget her. Even her famed bust, high cheekbones, piercing gaze, flawless symmetry, rests not in Egypt, but in Berlin, yet still draws thousands who queue up, craning their necks to behold a woman who lived over 3 millennia ago, a woman whose mere glance shifted the axis of a kingdom. You settle on a sun-warmed stone, close your eyes, and imagine a golden afternoon at Akhenaten's palace, lotus blossoms drifting down the Nile, and a woman standing on the balcony, watching the sun sink slowly behind flat rooftops. Perhaps she smiles. Perhaps she contemplates what lies ahead when she must depart. No one knows the whole truth, yet that matters not. For sometimes, what cannot be pinned down is what makes a legend. And Nefertiti, the beautiful one, has come, remains one of history's most beguiling mysteries, written in ink of sunlight. You stand before a magnificent temple in the heart of the desert, a place unlike any before. No jackal-headed Anubis statues, no winged Isis, no blue Osiris or ibis-headed Thoth wielding a stylus. All are gone. In their place, at the temple's center, shines a perfect circle, brilliant as the sun itself, that is Aten. You're not seeing mirages from the scorching sand. This is a revolution, and its architect, none other than Pharaoh Akhenaten, alongside his grand companion, Queen Nefertiti. They were more than a power couple. They were history's shockwave. They weren't content to tidy up rituals, redecorate sanctuaries, or alter incense scents. No, they upended everything. Under Akhenaten's decree, Egypt's hundreds of ancient gods, from the grain spirit to the tears goddess, were sent into retirement. Their temples shuttered, their statues dismantled, and a new command issued: worship only Aten, the sun disk god of pure light, formless, faceless. An audacious, abstract concept for villagers accustomed to revering cows, cats, and crocodiles. But the true marvel lay not just in this novel faith, but in its expression, especially in Nefertiti's role. Typically, in ancient courts, even queens appeared only behind curtains. They glided softly, smiled demurely, sometimes lifted a hand to beckon a bird. Yet Nefertiti? No, she stood beside no one. In the reliefs adorning Aten's temple walls, she appears shoulder to shoulder with Akhenaten. In rituals, she does not sit quietly, but participates actively and regally, her eyes fixed on the sun itself, as if to debate the very light. Then there are images that raise eyebrows. Nefertiti, clad in a white ceremonial gown and towering crown, delivering a mace blow to the head of a bound enemy. This is no delicate gesture. This is the posture of a sovereign, leading, wielding authority, protecting her realm with mind and muscle. In another niche, Nefertiti cradles a child, tender, ordinary, like a warm painting. There she is mother. A few steps later, she re-emerges as strategist, ceremonial leader, spokesperson for the sun's radiance. She does not play one role, she performs the entire drama. All culminates in a zenith, a brand new city born of the desert. Akhetaten, the horizon of Aten. Not merely a residence, but a manifesto in stone, political, religious, artistic, and personal. Behind each wall, upon every altar, you sense Nefertiti's presence, as if she drew the city's very blueprint in spirit. That city, like a dream, rose swiftly, blazed, then faded. After Akhenaten's death, the old order returned. Aten's name erased, temples rebuilt, gods reinstated, and Akhenaten consigned to oblivion. Yet, curiously, one can raze a city, obliterate a king's name, even banish a faith, yet one cannot erase Nefertiti's image. Her proud visage, her deep, compelling gaze remain carved on tombs, etched in reliefs, sparking debate to this day. You stand silent amid the ancient stones. Sand drifts from a collapsed vault above. Wind whistles down marble corridors, slipping through gaps in walls once gilded in gold. And you imagine, on some distant dawn, when the first rays of sunlight touched Nefertiti's face, she did more than merely arrive. She left her mark upon the light itself. You stand within an ancient temple, where sunlight filters through stone fissures like golden threads, stitching together the memory of an empire faded into darkness. Upon the colossal walls, carvings endure. Axe marks, chisel grooves, traces of a sculptor's hand from 3 millennia past. Amidst that myriad of forms, she emerges. Nefertiti. You blink once, then again. Something extraordinary unfolds here. Not merely because she was queen, other Egyptian queens were carved into stone, but none so extensively, none portrayed with such grandeur, such authority, sometimes even overshadowing her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten. Your gaze settles on the largest relief on the eastern wall. There, Nefertiti wears the tall blue crown, an emblem once reserved solely for male pharaohs. That crown is not ornament, it is proclamation. In a society where every strand of the king's hair was deemed sacred, the crown embodied sovereign power, and Nefertiti dons it without hesitation. Beside her stands Akhenaten, yet your eyes return to her, not for size, but for stance. Resolute, upright, her gaze fixed forward, as though she peers through history to meet you, the silent observer from a distant future. But the singular marvel is that these carvings do not depict Nefertiti solely as ritual monarch, not only in ceremonies, offerings, or solar processions. She appears in a moment you would scarcely expect immortalized on ancient stone, the moment of motherhood. You behold her bending tenderly, arms cradling one of her young daughters. The little girl looks up at her, clutching a fresh lotus blossom. Her curled hair and rounded face are etched with uncommon affection. Nefertiti bows her head, forehead nearly touching her child's, as if whispering a lullaby or a gentle jest. None can know. Yet, whatever it is, it diverges from standard Egyptian art, where every image is formal, symbolic. These portrayals reveal to you, she was not only queen, she was human, and perhaps the true ruler. Evidence suggests that in Akhenaten's later years, as his strength waned, Nefertiti became co-regent, not a consort behind the throne, but seated upon it alongside him. Some scholars even believe she ruled solo under another name after Akhenaten's death, although history attempted to obscure that by erasing her name and shattering her statues. Upon the remaining stone walls she endures, distinct, unshakable, imbued with presence. In a theocratic society where kings were viewed as gods incarnate upon earth, Nefertiti needed no deification. She achieved something more remarkable. She became a symbol of the sacred while retaining her everyday humanity. She proves one can be as majestic as the sun and as tender as an embrace, wear a crown and cradle a child in one's arms. You wonder, did those ancient sculptors, as they carved these images, realize they were engraving something timeless? Did they imagine that 3,000 years later, someone, perhaps you, would stand here in a quiet night and feel a kinship with a woman who lived, loved, and ruled in an age now preserved only in memory? A gentle breeze glides down the stone corridor. Fine specks of dust swirl in the light like ancient fireflies. All is still. You hear no voices, yet you sense a whisper. I once lived. I once loved. And I once led. You close your eyes, letting the space enfold you. Visions of Nefertiti cradling her child, moving among her people, presiding over sacred rites, etch themselves into your memory as if you, too, had stood there. She requires no grand monument or pyramid. These simple reliefs speak volumes beyond any epic. But then, as with every beautiful dream, it must fade in the dawn's light. Nefertiti, the woman once carved in stone with a radiant halo, who wore the pharaoh's crown, stood beside the king, cradled her child beneath the Aten sun, suddenly vanished from history's flow. You walk slowly down an ancient stone corridor, where the relief that once bore her name now reveals only empty spaces. Egyptian hieroglyphs have been deliberately chiseled away, leaving cold, shallow grooves, as though someone tried to erase the presence of one who was once everything. Around the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, Nefertiti's name ceases to appear. No longer is she present in ritual ceremonies, no longer in family scenes. Every trace grows fainter, as if she never existed. You stand there, amid that carved void, and wonder, what happened? One theory says she died, perhaps of illness, perhaps an accident, or some event unrecorded. Maybe she passed quietly and was buried in secret to avoid shocking a court already mired in controversy. But if so, where is her body? Where is her tomb? Who laid her to rest? All remain questions. Others claim she fell from favor, that between her and Akhenaten rifts arose, political, religious, perhaps even personal. Perhaps she opposed his radical reforms. Perhaps she lost power to another faction. But if so, why is there no record of her deposition or exile? Then there is the most intriguing hypothesis. Nefertiti did not vanish. She merely changed her name. Some scholars believe she became pharaoh under another guise, ruling Egypt after Akhenaten's decline. Under the mysterious, elaborate name Neferuaten, this figure flashes briefly in ancient texts, with her own seals, her own decrees, and notably retains Nefertiti's signature style: graceful lines, Aten worship rituals, an unmistakable aura of power. Perhaps she was even the one who paved the way for the next dynasty, possibly Tutankhamun's. You look down at the sand gathering around the statue's base and realize, if Nefertiti truly ascended the throne, it would be a monumental victory for a woman in the ancient world, but also a story intentionally concealed. For after Akhenaten, his successors reverted to the old faith. Aten's temples were shuttered, the city of Akhetaten abandoned, Akhenaten's statues smashed, his name erased, and Nefertiti, if she was pharaoh, was swept up in that purging wave. No records remain, no tomb, not a single farewell line. Imagine that. A woman who once stood at the pinnacle of glory, who was the very emblem of power, beauty, intellect, and change, suddenly erased from her own era, not defeated by enemies, not overthrown by war, but by deliberate oblivion. And so she fell into silence. Yet strangely, that very silence has made her endure beyond any praise. Over 3,000 years later, we still stand here, asking questions about her. Each stone wall, each erased carving, each nameless gap, all seem to whisper one thing. Something has been buried, and it still waits to be told. You step out of the corridor, gazing at the darkening Egyptian sky. The sun sinks behind the dunes like a coin dropped into the well of memory. You know that until Nefertiti's tomb is discovered, if it even exists, we will have no answers. But you also understand that sometimes it is the unknown that makes history wondrous. And if Nefertiti lies somewhere in an unexcavated chamber, among forgotten statues and centuries of dust, then perhaps she is smiling, for she knows she never truly disappeared. Although history tried to erase her traces, chiseling her name from walls and leaving her tomb undiscovered, Nefertiti, somehow, has never truly vanished. One day in 1912, as the dust of centuries still blanketed the abandoned city of Amarna, a German archaeologist named Ludwig Borchardt pursued his familiar task. Digging. Scorching sand, a rusted shovel, almost certainly no air conditioning. Then, in a tiny chamber of an ancient sculptor's workshop, a discovery that silenced the world. A bust of a woman, carved with exquisite grace, gazing at you with a look no one dares call accidental. And there she was, Nefertiti, reappearing. Not by scepter or decree, but by a gentle tilt of the head and a half smile, half challenge in her eyes. That gaze, preserved beneath centuries of faded paint, still radiates absolute regal pride. Imagine standing in Berlin's Neues Museum, where her bust rests in its own quiet gallery under soft golden light. She needs no words. She wields no jewel-encrusted crown. Yet you feel her appraising you, kindly, but not entirely forgiving, as though she knows you ordered fast food instead of cooking dinner, as though she knows you intend to abandon your dreams, and worse, she knows you're thinking about it right now. With her towering blue crown and flawlessly sculpted cheekbones, the statue does more than resurrect an ancient woman. It defies all concepts of time. Some say her beauty is too perfect to be real. Others claim she is merely an artisan's fantasy. But whether art or reality, her beauty remains impossible to ignore. She is not merely a figure of antiquity, confined to dusty history books. She has become a symbol, not of gold or thrones, but of something deeper, presence. A woman once deliberately forgotten by history now stands among the world's most recognizable faces. A logo needs no name, a brand needs no slogan. only a look. You know this, and so does Egypt. For decades, Egypt has petitioned for her return. Heartfelt, sometimes fierce appeals to Germany. She is our queen. The museum, however, replies with the same serene tone as the glass case housing her bust. She is here, and very peaceful. That debate continues unresolved. Diplomats exchange letters, scholars publish papers, tourists line up, and Nefertiti remains. Her eyes cast to one side, chin high, seeming to say, "Argue among yourselves, I am too busy enduring." Isn't it fascinating? A woman who lived over 3,000 years ago without a found tomb or mummy, yet who leaves behind a feeling you cannot name, but know. When you look into that gaze, you sense the presence of someone still here, still watching, still holding secrets the world has yet to touch. You leave the museum, whether in reality or imagination. Outside, night has fallen. Streetlights glow faintly. You walk on with a curious sensation, as if you have just met someone from another era who understands you more deeply than anyone alive. Nefertiti needs no repatriation to be called queen. She needs no pyramid to prove her greatness, no golden statue, no courtly entourage. She lives on, not by title, but by memory. Not in treasures, but in the imaginations of millions, those who have met her gaze and wondered, what does she know that we have never understood? You have just left Nefertiti's palace, where her gaze still seemed to follow you from a relief now faded by time. A desert breeze stirs your cloak, carrying the scent of ancient stone, incense resin, and a hint of curiosity. You head east, to where the Nile glides past low grasslands and reeds whisper among themselves, as if sharing some age-old secret. As the sun dips toward the west, turning the water into a ribbon of shimmering gold, you pause by the river near the Giza Plateau. This is no tourist parking lot for pyramid selfies, no signs, no refreshment stalls. Only locals, sitting on the bank, bamboo toothpicks in their mouths, watching the water as though gazing upon an untold memory. An elderly man, beard silver as morning mist, points to the river's center and says, half storytelling, half testing you, "Have you heard of the submerged Sphinx?" You raise an eyebrow. Which Sphinx? He does not answer at once. He only smiles and hands you a straw hat. It seems the journey is about to begin. Beneath the silt-laden water lie hidden wonders no one dares confirm. When the river falls, usually in early winter, large stone blocks emerge from the riverbed. They are not the smooth stones carved by time and current. They are square, with even grooves, and some pieces, when viewed obliquely in the sunset glow, reveal a curve, a sculpted line, a form unnaturally precise. Villagers call it the submerged Sphinx. They do not shout it from rooftops, nor live stream it. Yet the tale passes from mouth to ear across generations, sometimes accompanied by a wink, sometimes by loaded silence. They say that long before pyramids rose, Before papyrus appeared and Egypt's gods had names, another civilization thrived here, older than antiquity itself. They built with stone, moved thousands of tons of material, and carved the likeness of a creature later known as the Sphinx. You crouch, touch a slab just peeking above the mud, slick, cold, unnaturally hard. A scratch marks its surface, perhaps from time, perhaps from a copper axe, or perhaps the imprint of a hand long forgotten. On another stone, you discern a claw-like corner carved millennia ago. This is no natural rock. It is intent made manifest. You look around. No archaeologists, no surveillance cameras, only the profound sense that you stand upon something untold. The submerged Sphinx theory is not new. Researchers have mapped anomalies in the river's strata, noting symmetrical geological formations. Satellite photographers have zoomed in pixel by pixel to reveal a straight row of stones beneath the current, too precise to be random. Divers in low water seasons report glimpsing through murk a massive shape, not fish, not wreckage, but something lying still. Yet no one has confirmed it, for confirmation demands funding, permits, international accord, and a touch of daring. Meanwhile, the Sphinx lies patient, waiting. You sit on a stone, gaze upon the river, and listen as the water laps the bank, whispering a secret. I have been here. I have never left. Unlike the great Sphinx at Giza, its face eroded, its body exposed to sun and wind, the submerged Sphinx, if it exists, lives in silence. Unmown grass, no drone photographs, no fresh paint. It is the Earth's primordial secret, shrouded by time, water, and skepticism. And you, standing by the river at dusk, feel an odd lightness, for sometimes it is the uncertain that inspires the greatest dreams. Perhaps the submerged Sphinx does not exist. Perhaps it is only stone and mud. But perhaps it is the final fragment of a civilization never recorded in books. You remain seated on that warm stone under the Nile's sunset glow. The water has calmed since the afternoon breeze. In that hush, you begin to hear voices, not from the spirit world, don't worry, but from researchers, scholars, and those delightfully obsessed with rocks. They do not whisper like the old fishermen. They speak in sonar scans, satellite imagery, geological data, and PowerPoint presentations awash in colorful charts. Some swear that when they dove to the riverbed, they found stone blocks arranged too precisely to be natural. Even curves, smooth arcs, slabs stacked like walls, and in places, a gentle contour like a neck, a jawline, or even a nose bridge. But whose? And why there? Then they show you the sonar map, and if you squint, tilt your head, and feel a tad peckish, you might perceive something sphinx-like lying prone. Of course, a conservative geologist will tell you what you're seeing is naturally folded strata and random geometric erosion. In other words, it's just rock, very, very rocky rock. but do not abandon the dream. For amidst skeptics stand those researchers willing to believe we face a fragment of history unwritten, perhaps a lost civilization, perhaps a temple buried beneath the mud, relics of an era when the Sahara was not a desert. You are not mistaken. The Sahara was once grassland, not the sand with a few shrubs kind, but lush plains with rivers, large lakes, and even hippos. People lived there, roamed, painted on cliffs, and possibly, just possibly, built something grander than imagination allows. You smile as a researcher describes, with eyes sparkling like a child telling a snowman tale. We're looking at a pre-pyramid era, a time when humans may have mastered monumental construction and then quietly disappeared. You dare not interrupt. Yet a question nags. If they were so skilled, why vanish? And so, as with all age-old historical debates, two camps emerge. On one side, classical scholars stand straight in libraries, blueprints in hand, mouths repeating three words: no evidence exists. On the other, shadowed figures in sunglasses roam at night with handheld radar, convinced the ancients conversed with the stars. You sit between them, not for lack of stance, but because you're asking yourself, might all we know, or believe we know, be merely the tip of a sandstone iceberg? You bend, pick up a small stone smoothed by water. It is cool, and when you flip it, blank. No code, no ancient map, no treasure glyph. Just a stone. Yet you feel no disappointment, for the stone's power lies not in what it is, but in what it makes you imagine. Perhaps those curves truly are limestone eroded by water and time. But perhaps, just perhaps, they are the legacy of a civilization that once sculpted with divine vision. And if so, then burial beneath mud is no end. It may be nature's own preservation. Like a precious book hidden in a vault, awaiting someone patient enough, curious enough, or delightfully lost enough to open it. You gaze at the river. Night has fully fallen. The water reflects only the faint twinkles of starlight. And you feel something unexpected. You need no answers now. Sometimes the unanswered questions compel us to journey onward. If the submerged Sphinx is real, it wouldn't just make archaeologists frown. It would upend everything. Every timeline in textbooks. Every diagram with arrows from prehistoric dawn to the glory of ancient Egyptian civilization. All would be called into question. You imagine an era so distant it had no name. Not the pre-dynastic period, not the Neolithic age, but something even earlier. A time when humans carved stone to tell stories, to remember, and to honor. The heavens. You picture them living by the river's edge before it became desert. They looked up at a sky full of stars. No electricity, no light pollution, no phones to distract them, only moonlight and slow-moving constellations across a black dome. They carved half-human, half-beast creatures, not for decoration, but to commune with the divine. A sphinx, not a symbol of royalty, but a prayer in stone. If that is true, Egypt would no longer be the beginning, but an echo. an echo stretching from a past we forgot we ever heard. Yet, it remains speculation. You gaze down at the muddy brown water flowing at your feet. If a sphinx truly lies submerged there, silent, cloaked in mud, resting its head upon history, why has no one excavated it? Why has the world not launched a grand survey, pitched tents, drilled into the riverbed, invited the press, and declared, "We have found a piece of history never before known"? The answer may not be simple. A historian once said, in a brief interview that few finished watching, "History isn't always ready to be changed. Sometimes the truth must wait." You don't know whom he addressed, but the words linger in your mind. For there is something peculiar about humanity. We claim to love the truth, but in reality, we love an orderly truth. New truths, if they don't fit the old order, are swiftly consigned to folders labeled unverified hypotheses or conspiracy theories, especially when that truth comes from an old stone lying quietly beneath mud. You recall the sonar maps, the slabs with unnaturally precise edges, and the local villagers' whispers, all seeming to hint at something. Yet you also remember the half-smile, half-serious gaze of scholars warning, "Be careful. Imagination can lead you further than fact." So, is the truth being hidden? Or are we simply not ready to accept it? Perhaps both. For if indeed an ancient, pre-Egyptian civilization once carved sphinxes to honor the stars, that discovery would be more than archaeology. It would be an invitation, compelling us to re-examine ourselves. What have we overlooked along the way? You sigh, not in disappointment, but with the strange feeling of standing before an unanswered question. Sometimes, that feeling, uncertain yet full of promise, is what keeps humanity's curiosity alive. You wonder, might there come a day when technology is advanced enough, when minds are open enough, and when imagination is valued as an asset rather than a threat, that the submerged sphinx will emerge into the light? Perhaps then, another generation, one not ours, will be the first to touch that stone. They will place their hand upon a curve carved tens of thousands of years ago, and hear not words but a heartbeat, but a... You stand by the Nile's bank. Night has fallen, and the water darkens slowly, like a silk veil stretched across centuries. The breeze carries the river's damp silt, and the scent of things left unsaid. You think of the submerged sphinx, of all those sonar scans, those oddly arranged stone blocks, and the curves some claim are natural, though you're not so certain. Then you wonder, if all those hypotheses hold true, why has no one excavated? Why has no large-scale archaeological dig ever taken place? So you begin to investigate. Your first answers come from documents so dry. Not because they're dull, but because they consist entirely of stipulations, seals, and phrases like "must be approved by the National Antiquities Authority," or "coordination required with the Egyptian Paleontology Council and interagency bodies." Translated into human terms, digging in Egypt isn't like gardening for a lost wedding ring. This is serious, extremely serious. Egypt, you must admit, takes heritage protection very seriously, and that is understandable. When you hold over 1/3 of the world's renowned archaeological artifacts, you can't let just anyone grab a trowel, step into the mud, and declare, "I'm here to unearth the universe's secrets." A real excavation demands mountains of paperwork. Not one form, not two, but a dossier large enough to serve as a pillow for a weary archaeologist. You must secure permits from provincial and central antiquities authorities, pass review boards, and of course present a complete budget, signed by at least 4 departments whose exact names no one remembers. And funding, lots of it. Imagine, you need geological equipment, water pumps, an archaeological team, professional divers, film crews, soil analysts, media specialists, translators, liaisons, tea servers. You even need insurance in case an ancient snake unexpectedly emerges from a sewer. It hasn't happened, yet the law requires coverage. Then there's the Nile itself, the river, beautiful, tranquil, and uncooperative. In flood season, the entire dig site would lie submerged, not in crystal clear pool water, but in fast, silt-laden currents carrying sand, mud, and sometimes fish larger than your hat. Even in the ideal dry season, millennia of sediment would make any effort a battle against nature and bureaucracy. Yet some whisper something else, that it's not only technical difficulty, but fear. Not fear of mummies rising or deities enraged, though blockbusters have played on that, but a very real dread. If a sphinx older than Giza's Great Sphinx exists, if a pre-pharaoh monument is down there, it would topple everything. Imagine the whole story of Egypt as civilization's cradle, with mighty pharaohs and pyramids as humanity's apex, suddenly overshadowed by a nameless culture, no national emblem, no dynasty, whose people came before history books began, and may have achieved feats that leave future generations baffled. For many, that is too much to accept. You are not sure what is true. But standing by the river, as the moon rises above the low palms, you sense one thing clearly. History is not always silent because it has nothing to say. Sometimes it is silent because no one has dared to listen. Perhaps the submerged Sphinx is real. Perhaps it is just stone. But perhaps, as with all mysteries, it lies there, patient, needing no validation, only remembrance. And you, standing here tonight, in the gentle Egyptian wind, know you have just contributed to that, an unspoken but enduring act of remembrance. You leave the desert behind. The hot wind subsides, the Egyptian dust drifts away, and before you lies a completely different scene. You stand on a narrow path winding along the southern slopes of China's mountains. No camels, no mythical stone statues, only mist as delicate as morning tea steam, drifting across the high ridges, turning the world into an unfinished ink wash painting. Suddenly before you stretches a spectacle that stops you in your tracks. An entire mountain, no, a whole range, carved into soft, flowing terraces, snaking from base to cloud. It is not erosion at work. It is the Longji rice terraces, dragon's backbone. From afar, They resemble the scales of a sleeping dragon, its body awash in water, light and vibrant green of young rice. You inhale deeply. This air is unlike any you've known. It carries the scent of damp earth, fresh rice shoots, and a profound stillness. A stillness not born of silence, but of every sound merging into one. Water trickling from terrace to terrace, bird song like soft flutes, and wind, at times as gentle as someone's breath within the mountain's heart. The Longji terraces are a masterpiece, not of emperors, not of court architects, but of ordinary people, the Zhuang and Yao minorities, who have lived here for centuries, even millennia. No excavators, no GPS, no app to measure each terrace's angle, only human hands and unwavering patience. Imagine, each terrace is a work of craftsmanship. People cut trees, haul stones, build earth walls, manage water, then plant rice. Each terrace is not merely earth, but time. Some are over 600 years old. If they were people, they would now be sharing ancient tales with great-great-grandchildren about planting rice with bamboo sickles. Remarkably, the higher you climb, the smaller the terraces become. Less soil, harder to hold water. Yet rice still grows, not by magic, but through hand-built irrigation systems, channels, reservoirs, spillways, carefully gauged by eye and ear. The villagers listen to the water's flow, watch how light glints on the flooded fields to know where water holds and where repairs are needed. No PhD in hydraulics required, just a life lived with the land. You ascend a few steps. The terrace's wet surface feels like liquid glass, reflecting the sky as it shifts from mist to pale sun. Beneath your feet lies mud kneaded by generations. 1 foot slips, you nearly tumble, but you catch yourself by bending your knees and think, perhaps I was never meant to be a mountain farmer. Above you, an elderly Yao woman sits by the water trough, washing vegetables. Her hair, almost touching the ground, is wound into a silvery coil. She looks at you and smiles softly. No words. The smile of someone who has witnessed countless harvests, seen the ebb and flow of water, and knows that visitors, like you, come and go with wide-eyed wonder. You ask her, through an interpreter, why is it called Longji, dragon's backbone? She nods, answering gently, because each harvest is a time the dragon awakens. You're not sure if she speaks truly or in jest, but you need no precise answer. For here, everything moves slowly. No clocks mark hours, only rice changing color. No car horns, only boots squelching in mud. Everything is defined by seasons, planting, harvesting, resting, and dreaming as the mountains shift hue. And strangely, though Longji is human-made, it never overpowers nature. It does not raise the mountains or level forests. It blends in. The terraces follow the mountain's curves as if born from the stone itself. Perhaps that is the true wonder, not erecting something grand, but making nature accept humanity as part of its own being. You step onto the narrow mountain path winding through Longji's mist-clad hills, where the wind carries the scent of damp earth and the soft murmur of water trickling like a lullaby. Before you, terraces rise one above another, layer upon layer, like the backbone of a giant dragon resting among the peaks. They follow every contour of the slope, glistening in the sunset as the day's last rays dance upon the thin sheets of water flooding the rice paddies. Here, there are no roaring tractors, no industrial sprinklers, only people, land, and time. The Zhuang and Yao communities have lived here for centuries, even millennia. Their hands have wrought the impossible, turning steep mountains into fertile fields. They did it not with blueprints or technical maps, but with intuition, experience, and patience spanning generations. You bend to a terrace edge where water flows from a small wooden trough. The stream is neither forceful nor hurried, yet unwavering, channeled from the mountain top to the valley floor, coursing through hundreds of terraces without a single machine. Each level is a micro-ecosystem, where rice sprouts from soft mud, sparrows dart for insects, and frogs chorus at dusk. You realize each drop here is cherished like a treasure. The people of Longji preserve a sacred bond with nature. They do more than plant rice, they live with the rice. Before each harvest, they hold mountain worship ceremonies. Elders in indigo robes and headscarves bear incense, rice wine, and whispered prayers. Children scamper about, drum beats and reed pipes echoing through the forested slopes, not for show, but as a silent thanks to the spirits of earth and sky. You pause at a stilt house built into the hillside, where an elderly Yao woman weaves cloth on a wooden loom. She invites you to sit, pours you a strong cup of tea, and recounts past harvests. She remembers, as a young girl, waking at dawn with her mother to carry baskets up to the highest terraces to check the water. Whenever heavy rains came, the whole village would rush out to redirect the flow, guarding each terrace from collapse. Each terrace is a vow, she says, eyes dim yet bright with memory. A promise between man and mountain. If we protect the land will protect us. You fall silent. Sometimes history lives not in textbooks or museums, but in rough hands, in wrinkles at the corner of an eye, and in songs echoing through the forest. In Longji, as the sun sets, oil lamps flicker in each wooden dwelling. Children nestle in elders' arms, listening to stories, while adults gather by hearth fires, sipping their corn wine and sharing harvest tales. No one rushes. There are no phone rings or alarm clocks. Time here flows slowly, just as these terraces were built, bit by bit, step by step, with hands and hearts. You continue along the stone path, your feet pressing into stones smoothed by years of footsteps. Below, the terraces spread like a vast tapestry of green, gold, and earthy brown, some rice still tender, others in bloom. Each patch is its own rhythm, its own story, and you begin to see. This place is not merely a photogenic wonder, but an epic in earth and water. A strange serenity settles as you stand among the fields, your worries dissolve. No more unread emails, missed messages, or looming deadlines. Only you, the land, and the gentle breath of this world. A boy darts past, clutching a bamboo tube of small fish. He smiles brightly, then disappears around a bend. A light breeze carries the scent of new rice and damp soil. You close your eyes and listen to Longji's song. Water, footsteps, calls echoing across terraces. and in the distance, an ancient lullaby still sung as it was 1,000 years ago. When night falls, mist once more cloaks the hills. You sit on a veranda, watching tiny lights twinkle in the valley like fireflies. An elder pours you one last cup of tea, saying, "Drink up. It will rain tomorrow. The rice needs water." You smile, raise your cup, and taste in that tea the mountains, the sky, and the human heart. Longji is more than an agricultural marvel. It is a heartbeat, a gentle message from the past. And tonight, you will sleep carrying that promise, the vow between human and earth. You step onto the narrow trail winding through Longji's mist-clad hills, where the wind carries the scent of damp earth and the soft murmur of trickling water like a lullaby. Before you, the rice terraces rise tier upon tier, layer upon layer, like the backbone of a sleeping dragon nestled among the peaks. They curve along every contour of the hillside, glistening in the sunset as the day's last rays dance across the thin sheets of water that cloak each level. Here, there are no roaring tractors, no industrial sprinklers, only people, earth, and time. The Zhuang and Yao communities have lived here for centuries, even millennia, their hands crafting what once seemed impossible, transforming steep mountains into fertile paddies. They achieved this not with blueprints or technical maps, but with intuition, experience, and patience passed down through generations. You stoop to a terrace edge where water gently flows from a small wooden trough. The stream is neither forceful nor hurried, yet unwavering, channeled from the mountaintop to the valley floor, coursing through hundreds of terraces without a single machine. Each level is a micro-ecosystem, where rice sprouts from soft mud, sparrows dart for insects, and frogs chorus at dusk. You realize that every drop of water here is cherished like a precious jewel. The people of Longji maintain a sacred bond with nature. They do more than plant rice. They live with the rice. Before each harvest, they hold mountain worship ceremonies. Elders in indigo robes and headscarves bring incense, rice wine, and whispered prayers. Children run around as drums and reed pipe melodies echo through the forested slopes, not for spectacle, but as a silent thank you to the spirits of earth and sky. You pause at a stilt house built into the hillside, where an elderly Yao woman weaves cloth on a wooden loom. She invites you to sit, pours you a strong cup of tea, and recounts past harvests. She recalls, as a young girl, waking at dawn with her mother to carry baskets up to the highest terraces to check the water. Whenever heavy rains came, the entire village would rush out to redirect the flow, guarding each terrace from collapse. Each terrace is a vow, she says, her eyes dim but bright with memory. A promise between person and mountain. If we protect the land will protect us. You fall silent. Sometimes history lives not in textbooks or museums, but in rugged hands, in the wrinkles at the corner of an eye, and in songs that echo through the hills. In Longji, as the sun sets, oil lamps flicker in each wooden home. Children nestle in elders' arms, listening to stories, while adults gather by hearth fires, sipping corn wine and sharing harvest tales. No one rushes, no phone rings, no alarm sounds. Time here flows slowly, just as these terraces were built, step by step, with hands and hearts. You continue along the stone path, your feet treading stones smoothed by years of footsteps. Below, the terraces spread like a vast tapestry of green, gold, and earthy brown. Some rice, still tender, others bursting with bloom. Each patch holds its own rhythm, its own story. And you begin to see. This place is not merely a photogenic wonder, but an epic in earth and water. A strange serenity settles as you stand among the fields. Your worries dissipate. No more unread emails, no missed messages, no looming deadlines. Only you, the land, and the gentle breath of this world. A boy darts past, clutching a bamboo tube of small fish. He smiles brightly, then vanishes around a bend. A light breeze carries the scent of new rice and damp soil. You close your eyes and listen to Long Ji's song. Water, footsteps, voices calling across terraces, and in the distance, an ancient lullaby still sung as it was 1,000 years ago. When night falls, mist once more cloaks the hills. You sit on a veranda, watching tiny lights flicker in the valley like fireflies. An elder pours you one last cup of tea, saying, "Drink up. Tomorrow it will rain. The rice needs water." You smile, raise your cup, and taste in that tea the mountains, the sky, and the human heart. Long Ji is more than an agricultural marvel. It is a heartbeat, a gentle message from the past. And tonight, you sleep carrying that promise, the vow between people and the earth. And so tonight's journey comes to an end. You wandered through a raucous tavern, stood before Queen Nefertiti, listened to the mysteries beneath the Nile, and touched the dragon's backbone at Long Ji. Close your eyes. Let these visions carry you into slumber. Don't forget to leave a comment. Which story did you love most? And if you want more adventures like these, subscribe so we can explore history together every night. Thank you for traveling with us. Comment 1 if you enjoyed these tales so we can bring you even more. Sleep well and see you next time.